Hi, and welcome to Read Becca. I hope everyone's having a great weekend so far. I wanted to catch up on what I am reading. So I had a really successful reading week. It was a pretty heavy week through the work week, but I managed to finish up a Desolation called Peace, and I can definitely say it is a new favorite read, favorite of the year. I absolutely loved it. I think Arkady Martine is a genius. I loved the first book for the linguistic and anthropological elements, a memory called Empire, but a Desolation called Peace takes that even further and really focuses in on those elements. So I absolutely love that. I love the fact that the plots of the two books are separate. So you can essentially read and not spoil the plot portion, but what is more of a spoiler is what's going on in the Empire, what's going on with interpersonal conflict, just kind of flipped from what we have with more commonly with books. So I absolutely love that. I will probably do some sort of separate wrap-up talking more about my thoughts and feelings because I have a lot. So I loved that book. Then yesterday I actually finished up Let's Talk About Love by Kann, which is, well, it was kind of billed as a YA asexual romance. I think I liked what it was trying to do more than what it actually did. So it did not work entirely for me. I think getting into it at the start, I went in with that initial expectation that it was YA, and then the very first scene is essentially a breakup, a fight between Alice and her girlfriend, who she lives with, who does not know she's ace, who is having issues with her sexual responsiveness, and says some very ace-phobic things to her, and obviously not knowing that she is ace. So that led me to believe initially that it was kind of maybe for an older audience. The character is in college, and so I readjusted my expectations. But then as things go along, the first probably 2/3 of the book is really much more about self-discovery, and Alice particularly has kind of drawn a line about her sexuality, feeling like she understands it and knows exactly how it's going to be for the rest of her life. But then she has some interactions with a new employee at her work. She works at a library, Takumi, and he makes her feel things that she thought she couldn't necessarily, and that kind of makes her question her sexuality. So we do go through a period of I'm certain I'm ace, and then questioning, and then personal development, where she realizes that maybe it's not quite as straightforward as she had internalized. And I think that all was good and probably excellent for a YA reader. I think it was really geared toward a YA audience who are still in the questioning phase. But then in the end, it does try to turn into more of a romance. And I had some pretty big problems with actually the third act drama. Obviously, if you're familiar with romance, you know there's always some sort of conflict in the third act that goes between the couple. And I'm not sure I would say it's a spoiler, but obviously if you want to read it, maybe skip ahead a little bit, about 30 seconds. But the third act drama here was effectively her admitting her feelings and that she wanted to have a relationship, after having explained to Takumi that she is ace and what that means for her in a relationship. And then his response was effectively to kind of echo back what he had heard her explain about being ace and try to talk through the description of what that would mean for their relationship and how that would affect him. And as soon as he started trying to negotiate what a relationship would look like, she took that as rejection immediately and just completely shut down. So for me, that was not something you want to put in the heads of young people at all. That is, what a adult healthy relationship is having a mutual conversation about what your relationship looks like and negotiating, what things are going to work for both of you. So really didn't like that part. Definitely was a deal breaker for me. So I finished it. It was probably a 2.5 to 3 star. I really would love to hear if anybody knows of any good ace or aro romances that are more about just, happy and joyful love between people. So this wasn't as much that. This was much more about questioning and self-discovery. So I would recommend those aspects of it, not as much the romance. Then I finished up on audio today, How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Cherie Jones. That is, I've mentioned a couple times from the Women's Prize long list. I picked it up just based on the cover and the description, so I didn't know a whole lot going into it. I would say, for me, I didn't love the book, so this was another kind of dud. Another probably 2.5, maybe 3 star, probably more in the 2.5 range. It follows 2 women on an island, and they are separated but brought together by a crime. So the book starts with one woman having a problematic birth, and her husband is committing robbery at the time that she's giving birth. And we find out that the other woman is the victim of the robbery. And so they're connected by this husband who is essentially bad to both of them, and hurts, everyone around him essentially. So it's a very slow literary tale. It's very much in the heads of these women. It jumps back to their histories with other women in their lives, but also with men. And it's very much a tale of generational trauma. So I think that I had problems with it in that you really had to go in agreeing with the premise that there was inequity or inequality on this island between the people who actually live there and the wealthy tourists that are coming there, without having that actually explained at any point. So that is brought up a couple times, but it's never really talked about in depth at all. And then that is the jumping off point for talking about the fact that the men of the island basically are all criminals. They're all angry and doing harmful things and traumatizing the women around them. So we never get sort of the root of that. What is the cause of the inequality and inequity here? And then we never really get explained why the men exactly are jumping into or being pushed into criminal careers. All of the men that we're exposed to, we just kind of see them fall into it. They don't have any real major explanation for why that happens. So from there, you have to kind of be on board with, and I'm not, the idea that the characters have that all men are kind of bad, and that's just the way things always have been. So that is almost verbatim what one of the characters says. And yeah, I just couldn't agree with that. And there was a whole plot line that was ignored where, or not plot, but essentially all of the women, the mothers, the grandmothers, the just the friends, every woman around each other has surrounded themselves through some sort of perceived need with these horrible men that treat them terribly, that, rape them, beat them, and they essentially have no recourse for when bad things happen because they've surrounded themselves with these men. They can't go to the police, they can't seek help when there are problems, and then they victimize other women. And the book very much seemed to imply to me that that them victimizing the other women was because they were victims themselves. It never actually put any responsibility on them as accomplices. And so I kind of had really major problems with that. And then, other than those elements, the actual plot relied very, very heavily on coincidence. So there were multiple times throughout the book where you happen to have two people in the same place at the same time. That is just fairly absurd. So that didn't work for me either. I think the things that did work in this, it is a phenomenally well-written book. I really love the writing, and the characters themselves feel rich and lived in. The location, other than not explaining the socioeconomics, I really felt that the sense of place was excellent. So I think those elements were there, but I just didn't get along with the plot or the messaging that it was trying to get across, I felt. So that didn't work for me. As to what I have going in progress, because those three are what I finished this week. In progress, I actually just started my Our Fantasy Bingo reading, as well as the Women Write Classic SFF Readathon reading. And I started Lud-in-the-Mist today. So I'm actually 67 pages in today. And this is really fantastic so far. I can see the references that I've gotten. I think it's Neil Gaiman wrote the foreword previously on one of the newer editions, and he has referenced this as an influence, Susanna Clarke as well. So this is all about a town that is situated at the end of two rivers, and one of those rivers has a source in fairyland. However, the town staunchly denies that fairyland exists. So at the start of this, we are following the mayor, and his son is, everyone thinks, mad. So he essentially, obviously to us, has some interaction with fairies that he can't communicate to everybody else. So that's about as far as I've gotten so far. I really like the descriptive writing. It's excellent. So I've got that going. I also have my Ursula K. LeGuin. I'm working on the Disposessed still. I am about 100 pages in, so I've actually made it through about 20 pages. This is really dense. It's like Bible paper. So I'm feeling good on that one. And then because I finished my audiobook, I actually just had the audio of This Is How You Lose the Time War come in. And I've read it before. I own it on in print, but I wanted to go for the audio because I've heard it's really fantastic. So that's a reread on audio. And I got about an hour in while I was completely cleaning my foster cat room. I got a new washable, a ruggable rug, and I think I really like it so far. It's very nice. And got that, cleaned the room. Actually, I'm getting a new cat tree for my cats, so I moved my old cat tree, cleaned everything top to bottom, and got through an hour of This Is How You Lose the Time War already. So I'm blowing through that. So that is what I'm reading this weekend so far. I think I probably will make some more progress this evening on Lud-in-the-Mist, and then hopefully we'll be able to finish at least one thing tomorrow. So we will see. And then just generally, I wanted to give an update on some cool feel-good stuff this week. So I started watching, I mentioned that it was a pretty heavy week for me. So in the evenings after work, I was just kind of wanting to shut down and not read. So I started watching The Healing Powers of Dude on Netflix, and it is this really adorable, sweet family show about a boy who has social anxiety disorder, and he is preparing to go from homeschooling back to attending school. So he gets a support dog, obviously named Dude, and it's so brilliant that they set this up to where he is imagining when he's having an attack that the people around him are some sort of supernatural thing, or there's supernatural things happening to him. So like the kids around him are zombies or he's sinking into the floor, and only Dude can see those things and actually help him deal with it. So I think that was very smart handling. It's got great rep there, obviously. It's got really good diversity. The cast, I really enjoy the cast. So the mom is Larissa Oleynik from Alex Mack and 10 Things I Hate About You. The dad is Tom Everett Scott from That Thing You Do. I think I watched that dozens and dozens of times back when it was new. And then the dog is voiced by Steve Zahn, who has been in lots of things, but he was also from That Thing You Do. So really enjoying that. And then my second feel-good thing, Chelsea Palmer on BookTube is a really fantastic booktuber. Chelsea used to read primarily fantasy, both YA and adult, and maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago got really into romance. So Chelsea has been a major source of romance recs for me as I've been exploring the genre, and then just very recently got into manga. So when the weather is nice, Chelsea actually has a farm, and Chelsea does Goats Pick My TBR. And so this week the weather is finally nice, and there is a Goats Pick My TBR video up this week. So I will link that down below. It was just a delight to see her goats and a mini horse. So that is it for my feel-good stuff. Great news for me this coming week. I actually have my first appointment for a shot. Very exciting. And also on the good news horizon to do with that, I just heard my library is reopening for not full browsing, but they're doing by appointment browsing, which is extremely exciting. I've been hoping for that for a long time. I don't know if I will take advantage of it. Probably will wait to get my second shot, and hopefully they will be fully open for browsing by then. So that's what's going on with me this week and weekend. Thank you for taking your time out this weekend to come check in with me, and thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.